Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Burdett, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening. Not all smooth sailing on day one of the academic year. Authorities battle to accommodate late applications. And parents protest over a Cape Flat school with 70 kids in a class.
The husband and the wife were involved in the accident and they both passed on.
A tragic story emerges about 2 of the 3 people who died in yesterday's Pretoria train accident. And Mzwanele Manye, who spent years as a spin doctor, has ditched the ANC for the African Transformation Movement. Find out why. Jeff. Well, it was back to school today for millions of children across the country. While many had a classroom and a desk, there are still children not placed in the education system. In Gauteng this morning, about 16,000 pupils were still without a school. Checho Moahi has the story.
For many, it was a long day of waiting and hoping. Parents queuing at schools and district offices trying to secure place for their kids.
Areas regarding late admissions, they remain a big issue. We got reports that parents were queuing in different places around the country, especially circuit offices and district offices where they had gone to request spaces for their children.
The parent of a grade 9 pupil says she's been waiting for hours for assistance.
From 6:30, lama form asiwanikwa ngoku ufika uyishiye phaphakathi bathi baza kufonela. We understand and isikole awuzufumana kula ndawo okufitshane nayo. Sizayithatha phi imali thini esabantwana kude.
Management at Isaac Makau Primary School says they have a few more spaces available.
Our biggest challenge is the accommodation because, as you can see, for us to even be able to reduce the other classes, we need additional classrooms. So if we can get plus minus 2 to 3 additional classrooms, then I'm 100% sure that we can be able to reduce those class sizes again. After we've sat with the SGP, we've managed to look around the school and we've managed to move a few things so that we can accommodate additional classes.
One of the main issues, the problem recurs every year, is the number of people migrating to Gauteng in search of better economic opportunities is far higher than those leaving the province. Johannesburg.
70 pupils, 1 teacher. That's the reality at many schools on the Cape Flats and in other areas around the country. On the first day of the new school year, a group called the Bishop Lavis Action Community staged a protest outside Bergville Primary School demanding more teachers. Atim Tungana has this report.
It's a school hall used as a classroom. And even worse, over 70 grade 4 pupils depend on 1 teacher.
Last year, a teacher at this primary school collapsed in class and was taken to hospital. The principal says it was due to the stress of single-handedly teaching more than 60 pupils with no assistance.
And it's for this reason the Bishop Lavis Action Community staged a peaceful protest outside the school.
You cannot fit 70 learners into this particular space that they have there, and this is completely unacceptable. This doesn't happen in your private C, in your ex-Model C schools.
Additional teachers is clearly what's needed, but there's been no move from the Provincial Education Department.
We're requesting at least 36 to 1. 36 learners per class, right? Per teacher.
The MEC for Education in the province admits there's a problem, but wants to further probe the complaints at Bergville Primary.
The principal is well aware of the mechanisms that he can use to ask for additional teachers, and protesting is not one of them.
So while education officials decide on a way forward, these pupils begin their school year cramped in a school hall with only 1 teacher. Atim Tongana, Cape Town.
Metro Rail officials today visited families of the 3 people who died in yesterday's train collision in Pretoria. Over 600 people were injured. Some are critically ill in hospital. Meanwhile, the site of the accident is still being cleared. And to update us now, here's our reporter on the story, Linda Kuhle-Kulu. Good evening to you, Linda. Now, I know that you were at the hospital. You were also at the accident site. Before we chat, let's just hear from PRASA spokesperson Lillian Mofokeng for the latest.
I can confirm that last night we could not continue with the clearing of the accident scene due to the storms and the rainy conditions that were there. However, the technical teams resumed responsibilities this morning at 6 o'clock, and already the trains are being hauled away, and we are really trying to make sure that we recover back the sites.
That was Lillian Mofokeng there from PRASA. How soon is that line going to be opened?
Well, I think tomorrow would be the last day where we can expect that place to be cleared, because they're saying yesterday the operations were disrupted by the fact that there was rain, so they couldn't continue with the cleanup operations. But what is quite interesting is that they said they were going to investigate as soon as the scene was handed to them. But now we're seeing cleanup operations instead of investigating, you know, what happened there. But perhaps the investigation is within their headquarters in terms of the control and not particularly on the scene.
You also spent part of today at the hospital. There are still some critically injured people. Do we know anything more about those people still in hospital?
Well, we know that there is one person in ICU. He is still unconscious. Therefore, they cannot ask him you know, who his family is, and all of that. He's still unconscious, but 2 really critically injured. We understand that another one, in fact, when during the accident, there was a bone that punctured part of his, you know, his body, so there was blood. He was internally bleeding, so they had to deal with that. But from what we have been able to gather, in fact, one of the family members that was there, she told us that he is recovering well. He is blinking every time he's speaking to him. But those are the 2 that were mainly really critical. But one of those is still unidentified, and you know, the PRASA as well as the Metro Rail has called upon them to just.
You also spoke to a family member today of one of the deceased, and you uncovered a really very tragic story. Let's just hear from that family member now before we chat a bit more.
The husband and the wife were involved in the accident, and they both passed on. So the husband is my cousin, and he was married to this lady, and then he passed on the scene of the accident. And then the lady was taken to our hospital yesterday, but she demised on arrival. And then the kids were having minor injuries.
And that's just the human face of the real lives that are destroyed when we hear the stats and these accidents that keep happening. Do we know the identities of those who died as yet?
Well, they haven't revealed the identities. They're saying that the families, as well as extended family, needs to be notified first before they can release those names. But one of the unfortunate things, I mean, what you hope for after such an accident is that, you know, not anyone doesn't lose more than one family member if there is a loss of life. But in this case, we understand that this family, a husband and a wife, were traveling with their 2 children. And, you know, within that catastrophe, we understand that even the children had to witness their mother being airlifted to hospital, but unfortunately she succumbed to death when she was at the hospital. But in fact, another you know, quite anguishing thing is that the nurse that was working to helping others had received news that in fact some of her family members were involved in this, and they cannot be reached at that particular time. But later on she understood that in fact they had passed on, both of them. Quite a disturbing
Utterly
thing.
Heartbreaking, isn't it?
Heartbreaking indeed. And in fact, these were the elders of that particular family. So
yeah,
they're saying they don't have elders right now. And
Yeah, I can see that you're so moved telling us that story. It really is so heartbreaking, but thank you. It's so important we hear these stories so that there are consequences. That's our reporter Linda Kuhle-Kulu telling us about the latest on the train accident victims. Well, today police moved child rape accused Nicholas Nino from prison to a psychiatric ward. For the next month, his mental health will be evaluated at Weskoppies Hospital in Pretoria. Nino is charged with raping a 7-year-old girl in the bathroom of a Dross restaurant in Pretoria last year. The National Prosecuting Authority says he was found in possession of the drug cat. 3 psychiatrists and a psychologist will now scrutinise his medical history and refer to evidence from the case, which is likely to include the video from the night of the arrest. Nino is yet to plead to the charges, but some are very angry with today's developments.
Our issue now with regards to this so-called insanity plea that Nino and his lawyer are bringing up is that it's moving the entire goalpost from whether he actually did it to whether he's mad or not.
Mzwanele Manyi has left the ANC after 30 years. The former government spokesperson and media owner says a lack of transformation is the main reason for his departure. Manyi accuses the ANC of failing to implement its policies. He says he hopes his new political home, the African Transformation Movement, will do better. The party was launched in October last year in the Northwest. It supports radical economic transformation and is closely associated with supporters of former President Jacob Zuma. Here's Manyi on his decision to join the ATM.
There was a resolution on the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. That resolution has basically been abandoned. I mean, if you hear what the finance minister keeps saying about conference delegates that made this decision, it's actually quite embarrassing. The ANC resolution to establish a state bank is also not gaining any traction. So one is saying to oneself, what is this? It's almost like a PR exercise.
Manyi now involved with the African Transformation Movement. Still ahead on eNews, the World Bank puts South Africa at the bottom end of the class for growth this year. South Africa's economy is expected to be one of the continent's worst performers this year. That's according to the World Bank's latest growth forecast. The international lender has cut its 2019 expectations for South Africa to 1.3%. Devin Morgan reports.
9.5 million people of working age are without jobs in this country, their fate largely dependent on a growing economy fueled by confidence and accompanying investment. But the World Bank's latest forecast suggests the economy will not reach labour-absorbing levels this year. In fact, with the growth forecast at 1.3%, South Africa is now among the worst performers in sub-Saharan Africa. That's lower than the region's overall expected growth rate. Government has been trying hard to attract investors, having secured hundreds of billions of rands worth of pledges last year. But fears of erratic electricity supply from Eskom, uncertainty over land policy and labour strife have put a lid on those investments materialising. The World Bank's growth forecast of 1.3% for 2019 is less optimistic than the Reserve Bank's 1.9% and Treasury's 1.7%. Devin Morgan, Johannesburg.
Woolworths wants customers to be in charge at the till. This is their solution for eliminating fraud. Many consumers have been victims of bank card cloning. Woolworths hopes to prevent this by making customers keep the card during their transactions.
If it is a dishonest person, through handling the card, they have the opportunity to skim the card using a device that has the ability to record the information on the magnetic strip. Alternatively, they have access to the information on the card. I know that some people might have concerns around the ability to tap and, if somebody gets hold of my card, of course you need to protect your card. You need to look after your card as you would after cash. But please don't be under the impression that a tap-and-go transaction has the ability to move millions of rands, because it's not like that.
Well, Wilmouth might be ticking the right boxes on that score, but it's had to backtrack after the owner of a baby carrier, Shannon McLaughlin, accused them of stealing her design. They met with her today after investigating. They've withdrawn the product now. They've also apologised to McLaughlin. They say they take responsibility for what they call striking similarities between the baby carriers. Let's get your indicators now. Well, still ahead, we'll go to our weather centre in Cape Town. Candice is there standing by. And then, of course, all the cuteness from the first day of the little ones going to school for the very first time. Oh. Let's get your Thursday weather now with Candice. Evening, Candice. Have you got some thunder showers in store for us tomorrow?
Good evening, Sally. Well, we've actually had thunderstorms across the summer rainfall regions for much of the year already, and that is set to continue on Thursday. We're also expecting some rainfall over the southern part of South Africa, and then we'll see some cloud pushing in along the Eastern Cape coastline with scattered thunderstorms over the interior, and then isolated to scattered thunder showers are forecast again over the northeastern and eastern parts, and we're expecting a sunny but windy day over the South Africa's central interior. Here's a look at that weather forecast in detail across the country, with a dry day throughout the Northern Cape, sunny and hot for Uppington and Pretoria at 34 degrees, a sizzling afternoon for Kimberley at 38, with highs in the low and middle 20s over the western parts. Partly cloudy and dry for much of the Western Cape, except over the eastern parts, where George can expect some rain at 23 degrees, and thunder showers for Beaufort West at 30, 25 for Cape Town and Hermanus. Warm throughout the Eastern Cape, lots of cloud along the coast and the adjacent lying interior, with up to a 60% chance of thunderstorms there. You'll see a sizzling hot day throughout KwaZulu-Natal, with maximum temperatures peaking in the mid-30s across the interior, with a chance of thunderstorms. Scattered thunder showers are forecast for Mpumalanga, a high of around 30 over the western parts. Hot weather continues for Limpopo, Polokwane at 32, with thunder showers throughout Limpopo, and you'll see thunderstorms mainly over the eastern part of Northwest, with a sizzling hot day over the western parts, Vryburg at 38 and Mahikeng at 37. Thunder showers are expected mainly over the northern and eastern part of the Free State, with 35 for Bloemfontein, 29 for Soweto and Johannesburg, 32 for Pretoria, with up to a 60% chance of thunder showers for Gauteng. As we head towards the end of the week, you'll see warm weather along South Africa's coastline, still hot with thunderstorms in the northeast, but with cloud moving in over the Western Cape and a cold front bringing in some rainfall overnight and into Saturday for the Western Cape. You'll see thunderstorms and hot weather over the northeastern parts, Pretoria and Bombela at 37. That's all from the Weather Centre. Have a good night.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you very much, Candice McKechnie. And finally, we saved the cuteness for last. Tanya Neft takes us into the schools to see just how the young ones coped on their very first day.
The first day of their schooling careers, Grade 1 learners at this school in Mitchell's Plain, Cape Town, couldn't be more ready to hit the ground running.
How excited are you today, your first day at school?
Very excited.
Yeah? Can I have a look at your uniform? You look so pretty in your uniform. Let's do a little twirl. Twirl, twirl, twirl. Oh, so cute. How do you feel on your first day of school?
Nice.
Are you excited?
Yes.
It was a combination of smiles and tears across the country, not only for the little ones, but for parents seeing their kids off.
It was just the other day that when he was born, when I cut his cord, and already he's going to school. You know, we were like, oh, so mom is going to be home alone, you know, missing him as well.
Very excited, also very nervous because I know that it's going to be a new year with new challenges and new things. But I'm excited and I trust that God is going to hold her within this space and He's going to carry her.
The Basic Education Department says more than 1 million learners countrywide entered Grade 1 this year. And as they settle in, we wish them well on what's just the start of their 12-year schooling journey. Tanya Neft, Cape Town.
Very sweet. Let's recap your stories before we go. Not all smooth sailing on day one of the academic year. Authorities battle to accommodate late applications and parents protest over a Cape Flat school with 70 kids in a class. Tragic story emerges about 2 of the 3 people who died in yesterday's Pretoria train accident. They were a married couple and leave behind 2 children. Mzwanele Manye, years as a spin doctor, has ditched the ANC for the African Transformation Movement. From me and the team, it's a very good night.